J-horror jokes.
When my mother was young, she used to fear something called Kura Baba. This is a memory my mother herself recalls vividly, and her brothers also knew about it well. As she grew up, my mother's fear of Kura Baba faded away. Even her brothers would sometimes tease her when relatives gathered, saying, "Hey, remember when you were scared of Kura Baba?" Well, my mother's childhood home was an old farmhouse. They had converted an old storage shed into a storage room, which was kind of eerie and old-fashioned. So, everyone thought that my mother must have been scared of it when she was little. However, recently my mother remembered what Kura Baba actually represented. The trigger was when my grandmother, my mother's own mother, showed signs of dementia after suffering from a stroke. It wasn't Alzheimer's, but a different form of dementia, yet it required the same care. So, my mother would frequently assist with caregiving. My grandmother couldn't recognize her own children's faces anymore, and she particularly didn't react well to women approaching my grandfather. Of course, my mother wasn't an exception. Seeing the stern expression on my grandmother's face as she approached my grandfather, my mother suddenly recalled the true identity of Kura Baba. Kura Baba was a face my grandmother had only shown to my mother. My grandmother, who was the third-born child herself, didn't hold my mother in high regard. While she pretended to be affectionate in front of my grandfather and other relatives, my mother revealed that when they were alone, my grandmother would pinch or scratch her, saying hurtful and inexplicable things. It turned out that these actions took place in the old storage shed. During my mother's early years, she had unconsciously developed a belief that her mother's dual personality, one that loved her in front of others and one that pinched and scratched her behind closed doors, meant that the person inflicting pain wasn't her mother but rather Kura Baba. Recently, as my grandmother's dementia has progressed, she can't even recognize her husband, my grandfather. There are several pinch marks on my grandfather's arms, similar to the ones my mother endured long ago.